Hello, everybody. My name is Johanna. I'm the executive director of the Species Conservation Foundation in Germany. It's called in German Stiftung Artenschutz. And I was invited to how to write successful grant applications. So I'm excited to be here and yeah, nice to speak to you. The contents of my talk is to give you some examples of fundraising, then to talk about grant writing, the actual question of the talk, how to select a donor, how to prepare an application, and how to then actually write the proposal. And I give you general advice from my experience of applying for grants myself, but also for giving out grants. And I will talk about the Amphibian Fund, so the Amphibian Conservation Fund of the Species Conservation Foundation, a special grant scheme that we have. So there are lots of different types of fundraising. Some require more effort, some less. The obvious one is writing grant proposals. Very often you have grant-giving NGOs that give out calls for grant proposals, and you can just apply. This is the one we talk about in this talk the most. Then there are also crowdfunding websites. They come up more and more. For example, justgiving.com. On the picture you see me. I used Just Giving to raise some funds for a pig conservation project because I ran a tough mudder last year. Then you can raise funds through your own website. You can add usually a donation button into your website. You can use social media. You can think about corporate sponsoring, so going to companies and ask them if they want to give you some money. Also, there are private fundraising events. You can maybe offer people if they have a birthday that they collect money and then donate it to your cause. So you can be creative as much as you want. There are so many options, but always think about what's the cost benefit. I always use the example of making like little crafts or something and then selling it. Yes, you can raise some money, maybe a couple of hundred pounds, dollars, euros, but it takes a long time for yourself to do it. So yeah, think about what is most effective, efficient for your purpose. Okay, the first question, the first on my list was how to select a donor. That's really important because the donor must fit to your purpose. First of all, think about what you really need. Know what you want to do. So have at least like a bullet point list of what you want to do, like the proposal, at least a short one. Identify your priorities because maybe you don't get all the money you ask for, but what is the most important you want to achieve? So prioritize that. Decide how much money you need for the full project, but then maybe also for your priorities. What staff and resources do you need? Do you need new skills? Do you have already all the skills you need, or do you need to do some training, or does your staff need to do training? Do you need traveling as well? Do you need overheads? Always think about what you really need, because then later you have to look at the donor, what the donor can offer. There are sometimes donors that don't cover overheads and so on. And then I'm a big fan of discussing your ideas with others because they have different experiences, different perspectives. Discuss your strategy with others and see what they think. Maybe you get like a fresh idea. What I always do is to keep a grant spreadsheet, and you should update it regularly. I'm going to stop this PowerPoint and open an Excel table where I have an example. 1 second, here you go. So you should see my table now. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Where can I increase this a bit? I hope you can see it more or less now. So I usually use different columns. So the name of the grant, sometimes I'm adding, oh yeah, see here, it's the name of the organization, the name of the grant, because some organizations have different grant schemes. So this is why I added that. The focus, what is that grant about? So it could be about research, only applied conservation, education, or they are excluding something. So for example, this one, SOS Save Our Species, is not for pure research, like really for only applied stuff. So I look at the different grants that I know of. I'm updating that sheet. For this one, I had some special for primatology, conservation of all species, and only specific directions. So if we go to the right, I then add, this focus, the deadline, when is the grant application due. The decision date is interesting as well, because you want to plan your timeline, your project, so you need to know when you potentially get the money. Who can apply? Very often they have restrictions. For example, students can't apply, or maybe it's only for early career researchers or something like that. So check that. The amount, how much can you apply for? And then I give some more details, the website, the contact person, and so on. So I always keep that spreadsheet so I can plan my applications. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. There we go. So yeah, I keep that grant sheet, I update it, and then I match my needs with the grants. Obviously, if I want to do a relatively researchy project, I shouldn't apply for a pure conservation grant where they only support very active stuff. Some of the grant or the grant organizations, they have eligibility tests or something like that, or points, key points that you have to check. Are you from that country? Do you have that focus, and so on? And only then you should really apply. What I then do is what you could do is to make your own application plan. So you look through all your sheet, through your Excel sheet, and make a list. When should I apply for which donor, so that you can plan ahead a little bit, what and when you do it, who you need for this. Maybe you need somebody who reviews it, references, and so on. So plan ahead. How to prepare the application. Read the guidelines, very important, and that's why I wrote down, reread the guidelines. If something is unclear, if you're not sure, just ask, because there are very often contact email addresses and so on. Just make use of that, and that's why I say plan ahead. So because you may have to wait a week or 2 weeks on the answer. As I said before, match the grant criteria, so the eligibility test, checklist, and so on. Which stage of the career are you? Are you in the correct country? Do you have the correct topic? Because if not, don't apply. It's a waste of time. Look for the form. Very often nowadays they have online forms, or maybe they have Word forms. Sometimes they don't have a specific format, so you can choose your own format. Make a timeline. Who do you need to help you? Usually you write yourself. Maybe you have people in your organization that you need to ask, is that correct? Does that make sense? Contents, is that feasible? Have someone who can check the language again, and so on. Yes, and sometimes you need a reference person, maybe from the university or somebody who knows your work. Make sure that person can see the application as well. And start writing. So how to write the grant proposal. Make sure you answer all the questions that are asked. Don't leave one out, because that will go immediately against you. Adhere to the word counts. Don't go over it. I mean, online forms very often cut you anyways when you reach the word count, so you can't write more. But even if you have an open word form, really do the word counts, because very often they have very high quality applications, and then if they need to choose who gets it, who not, they immediately throw the ones out that didn't do the guidelines and the word counts. So really stick to that. check if you understood the question right. For example, if you're not native English speaker, maybe ask somebody, is that really what they mean? Because if you misunderstand the question, that's also not great, and that would be a shame. Compare with the grant criteria again. I can't emphasize that enough. For example, if the grant is for up to 5,000 euros and you write down 7,000 euros, they will immediately put your application to the bin. So double check. Recheck the budget if everything's correct, that you didn't make a mistake, calculation mistake. Proofread it, no spelling mistakes, consistent writing. Abbreviations, for example, don't use different abbreviations. Don't forget to put the species names in italics and so on. Don't make mistakes in numbering and so on. Just really check that again. And send it on time, of course. Some more tips. The word count actually indicates how much it's needed. I recently had a student and he was filling in an application, and there was something, I think methods was 500 words. And then he sent it back to me and he had 100 words in there. And I said, try to think, if they want 500 words, they do want more details. So write down everything that you can about methods, the analysis and everything. So really use the word count as an indication how much they want. Be concise, even if you're under the word count, let's say 500 words and you are now at 450, but don't carry on explaining everything again. If you have more words, just like, don't try to repeat or anything. Be concise, because even if you're under the word count, that looks much better. The writing style is important as well. Try to be scientific, but easy to understand for a person with a different expertise. Let's say you apply for like a survey and you use radio tracking or something. It may be that somebody else reads it who has more knowledge about human-wildlife conflict or something. So don't use, I mean, if you have really difficult terms or something, words, then explain them briefly at least once, so everyone knows what you're talking about. Have you expressed your objectives and the key messages clearly? Anything that you consider really important? We recently applied for a fund from the EU, and that funding application came from our zoo. So from one of our zoo partners, so only from one. However, the funding came from my foundation, from my organization, which is a consortium of many zoos. And the project itself had 7 different EU member states as the supporters, as the partners. So I found that really cool. If it's an EU grant, that's really cool that a lot of different EU countries are actually involved in the project. So even though that wasn't a specific question, I tried to include that somewhere because I thought that maybe gives points. Let someone else read it. I said that again. Maybe even somebody who doesn't know about that topic at all. Does he still understand it? That would be good. Very quickly about concise writing. Try really to really focus on what you want to say. There's a little example here. The teacher demonstrated some of the various ways and methods for cutting words from my essay that I had written for class, 22 words. You can shorten that to the teacher demonstrated methods for cutting words from my essay. Very short, concise, you can understand it easily, you don't have to reread it, so try that. It takes a little bit practice, but it will work. Also the abstract, I just had quickly something here. Abstract is always something that many people just try to like continue writing something, summarize, but you can be really strategic about it and structural. So usually it's the background, put the work in context, the goal, purpose, what difference will it make, the method, how will it be done, expected achievements, what will be the project achievement, outcomes, overall consequences of the project, what does it mean, what does it change, and try to do 1 or 2 sentences for each part. That should be 150 words in total around. So here is an example. You can quickly skip through that. I put some colors. So the black one is the background. Then blue is we aim to. The green one, what they want to do. The brown one is the result, the output, so to say. And then the last bit is what the impact will be, the outcome. What will it change? So try to be really strategic and write in a structured way. So sometimes we get the situation where we don't have a form, we don't have a Word form, no online form. We just should send something, maybe 5 pages or something. So in that case, try to check the guidelines first. What are they looking for? What kind of organization is it? Is there any indication of overall length, maybe 5 pages, 3 pages? Are there some key paragraph, for example, like backgrounds, aims or something? Do they say something so you have, at least you have these paragraphs? What kind of organization is it? What are they looking after? Is it a scientific organization, or is it more like maybe a humanitarian organization who doesn't know much about natural science? Yeah, try to find out. Do you know somebody who has applied before, or is there a contact address so you can ask what is important for you, or is there anything that I really should have in there? In the end, if you come across that situation where you don't have a form, it's a little bit personal taste. I introduce you my taste, so to say, and also I haven't said that yet, but the Amphibian Funds that we do with our organization, we are restructuring that. We are developing a new form, and this will be a little bit like my form as well, our form. So this is one option, but again, it's a bit personal taste as well. Start with a cover page, maybe with a photo of the species. Give basic information like the title of your project, applicant details, a telephone number, the date, start and end date, a map. No, the map actually is in the background, sorry for that. The basic information, it can be really like a bullet point list. Give a summary, that's always good. Before we get to the background, I just tell you that recently I had somebody from another organization. We applied for money from that organization. He was complaining to me the proposal that we sent was bad because it was lacking a unique selling point. So I didn't know that. That was never indicated on a website or something. But yeah, that's something you could find out with actually contacting them and asking them, what do you want? So unique selling point would go somewhere here. So what's the special thing in your project? Background, the problem, the threat. Why do you have to work on that species? The main aim, impact, or vision is like different terms. The terminology is sometimes a bit difficult. You can check on their website what terminology they use, but this is more the long-term goal. For example, have a secure, viable population of a certain species in that area. The intended outcomes, so that's a bit more medium long-term, so the direct outcomes of your project to address that threat. And then the objectives. So these usually have to be SMART, and you probably heard about SMART. I'm just repeating that here. You need to be specific, target a specific area. You have to have your objective measurable, quantify, or at least suggest an indicator of progress. For example, 10% increase of population size. You have to make it achievable. It doesn't make sense to say 50% increase of population size if that's just in 3 weeks or something. That's not possible. Also, you have certain resources, so be realistic about that. Relevant, so you want to achieve your overall aim. So if your project and your objectives don't contribute to that overall aim, that doesn't make sense either. And be time related. Specify when the results can be achieved. For example, within 1 year, we want to achieve a 10% increase of population. And then the next one would be the activities, the actions. So how do you want to reach the objectives? The outputs is usually I think of something tangible. So it could be a publication, an action plan, but it could be a completed workshop as well. So something that you can count. Yeah. The outcomes, on the other hand, is more like an interpretation. What does that mean for this situation? So how is that situation changed? And then you can have all kind of other comments that usually in an application form, usually they have different questions if the organization is interested in that. For example, risks to the project, to the people who work on the project or the animals, ethics, sustainability of the project. So what happens when the project ends? Does everything fall into pieces, or how does it continue, or does it have to continue? Local people, what's the impact on them? Hopefully not a bad not a bad impact. For example, if you protect an area, you want to, maybe you have to evict the people, like get them out of there, but that would be a really bad influence on the people. So that would be something you should think about if you really want to do that. Capacity building, so training maybe for local people, for local students, for yourself, yeah, anyone on the project. And monitoring evaluation is very important nowadays, because only if you evaluate your project, you know if you reached your objectives. So look at this bunch of, in the other comments, look at this bunch of topics. What do you think the donor wants to hear? I mean, I want to hear about all of these topics, but maybe the donor is not that interested in it. So try to find out what they want. The budget, of course, and references if you used any. Yeah. A little excursion to theory of change. You may have heard about that. There are different types of how you can structure your impact. So theory of change is one of them. Log frame is another one. So I just want to very quickly do that. So what you assume is that you start with actions. So what is the project? What does it bring about for change? For example, I want to do a biodiversity survey or training workshops. The output is what is produced by these actions. What's the immediate result? They can be measured in quantity or quality sometimes as well. For example, number of reports from that survey, or how many people are trained. So this is something you can count. Immediate outcomes are the changes brought about by the project's actions. So for example, the information you got in the survey is now used in the reports to inform decision making, or these individuals who are trained can apply their new skills. And what does that mean for the threat, the original background threat? So for example, let's see here. Yeah, this is, yeah, I guess if you train people, for example, it doesn't really match here, to be honest, but if you train people, for example, in anti-poaching skills, that means that poaching will hopefully reduce, so the threat is reduced. And then the impact is usually of your bigger goals, the long-term change that is brought by that project. So for example, if poaching is decreased, the species population will increase. So maybe you reach your 10% increase of the population size. The trick with theory of change is usually that you plan backwards. So this is the poaching example. But where you start is actually you think about what do I want to achieve? This is where you start. So you don't start right away, oh, I could do a workshop. No, you think about what do I want? I want that the hunted species population increases. This is what we want. So then you think back, what threat do I need to address so that this happens? So actually poaching, the threat needs to decrease. What do I need to do to decrease poaching? Well, I need to have more effective patrols to deter the poachers. And what do I need to do that? I need to have park guards who conduct effective patrols. And then you think about what stands in the way. Why don't I have that? Because maybe they don't have the capacity yet. They need training. So then you think about what outputs do I need and what actions do I need. So you plan backwards. And I just want to show that because this is a really super cool preparation for any of your projects, because it shows you, it makes you realize what do I actually want and why, and then really plan backwards so your actions actually lead to the impact that you want. Okay, timeline. This is again like a general advice. Plan enough time for your application. Online sign-in may need time. I had that a couple of times that I waited for the password or the sign-in what's it called, confirmation email for a day or another day. So don't do it like 2 hours before the deadline expires. Do you need a translation? Recently we wrote a grant together with an English collaborator, but the grant application itself was in German, so I added 2 days extra to make sure that the translation is done thoroughly. You need your collaborators to read the application. You can't just submit and the others don't know what you submitted in their name. Do spell checks, word counts, and so on. That takes a lot of time as well. Let the person read who's new to the project, who can sense check and who can look for the contents. Does it all make sense? Check the deadline, which time zone it is, because it may be a time zone in America or something and you sit in Europe, or the other way around, and then suddenly you miss it just because it was earlier than you thought. Also, plan in enough time for if you need references, you need to ask somebody, can you provide me a reference? Maybe that person can't provide that reference within 1 or 2 days. Maybe you need to have 1 or 2 weeks notice in advance, so that person can read the project first and then write the reference. And plan in time for technical problems as well, especially if you have online submission. Something always goes wrong. It's always like that. Something crashes, you can't save it, suddenly it's gone, and so on. Your browser doesn't work anymore, your internet suddenly crashes, everything. Yeah, so please always include enough time. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Amphibian Fund now. So this is a special grant scheme from the Species Conservation Foundation. Yep, just said that. We support projects of less than 1 year. That can mean that your organization can already exist 10 years, yes, but the project that you want to conduct is like a 1-year project. It can be like a piece of a bigger project as well, yes, but then it must be a little bit like separate a little bit. The maximum grant size is 5,000 euros. The focus is, because of our background, is on in situ, so field conservation, but also we accept projects that have to do with a one plan approach. So as I said, the ex situ, in situ combination. That can be reintroductions, it can be even like taking species into captivity to set up like a backup population or something like that. So we are open to these ideas. But it always needs a clear conservation relevance. We also allow applied research, for example, surveys to make sure the species is there or not there, how many animals are there, population size, distribution, and so on. Yes, but only if it has conservation relevance, not just because, I don't know, just because you want to do a survey. And we exclude US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. There might be we might do an exception, for example, what happened in Australia with the bushfires. That's possible, but at the beginning, we don't really want that. I want to, because you're looking at words the whole time, I want to show you some pictures as well. So I just want to give you a brief overview of the 2018 projects. 2019, unfortunately, the grant was not given out because of different reasons. but these are the 2018 projects. So this is about this marsupial frog in Argentina. They did surveys with sound recordings to rediscover the species, and also covered other threatened species with the same survey. And then it's the grant applicant and how much the grant costs. So it's only very, very brief, that you have like a little bit of an overview what we supported before. This is the hide and seek with the Goliath breeding, with the Goliath frog, breeding ecology of the Goliath frog. It's a project in Cameroon, but was done by a German organization, Frogs and Friends, and they explored the breeding behavior in the wild. This is an example for the applied science. So it's very helpful for example, captive breeding or rescue populations to know how they breed. Then we have broadcasting chorus sounds for conservation, evaluating a method to rediscover and promote Darwin frogs populations settlements. So that was in Chile, and it was evaluating a bioacoustic method to collect data, and was also relevant for other species. This was in Germany, native amphibians in the focus of awareness raising. So that was the Danube-crested newt. Sorry, not in Germany, in Austria, of course. And it was environmental education with children about native amphibians. Then we have the endangered amphibians in the Ethiopian highlands, new information to a pressing knowledge gap. So a couple of different species in Ethiopia, and they did surveys and used the information to inform for a key biodiversity area, a new one. As you can see in the amounts, by the way, that's a good point, I don't have that in the text. The grant was allowed maximum 4,000, we changed to 5,000 now. But if your project maybe needs less than 4,000, don't change it artificially to 4,000 necessarily, because actually grant organizations really like it if a project is a little bit cheaper, because you have to think about it. You have 4,000 or 5,000 euros, and instead of supporting one project, if the project is cheaper, you can support two. That's really great. That's a nice kind of 2 for 1. So it's nice if a project is cheaper. So don't make it on purpose more expensive. You can, but don't force it. Then we have the population and habitat evaluation of the Kurdistan newt in Western Iran, with special reference to environmental education for conservation of the species. So that was about population surveys, habitat assessments, environmental education. So yeah, a bunch of different activities. And I think this is the last one, creative and conservation action plan for the endemic and endangered Golfo-Dulce poison dart frog using citizen science and tiny tech. So that was radio telemetry to assess the home range distribution, then preparing a conservation plan, action plan, and do citizen science with local communities. Oh, there's another one. Community sensitization and protection of Albanian water frog by promoting species recovery. So that was genetic studies, distribution, website development for the organization, conservation action plan, environmental education. So again, a wide range of activities. So the amphibian funds, we will have, as I said, it's not, it hasn't started yet. We are developing it at the moment, but in the second part of this year, we will start it again. What we probably will do is to have a pre-proposal form so that a lot of people can apply with their initial project idea. And then later we will look at these pre-proposals and see who fits quite well. So select a range of applicants and invite them to provide a full proposal. The advantage also for the applicant is that you don't have to do too much work. So the pre-proposal is only 1 or 2 pages. That's relatively quickly done. And if we then think, well, it's not very relevant for us, or anyways, you haven't put too much time into it. So this is quite good. I will very quickly show the pre-proposal form because this is the one that we have already done. very briefly. So as I said before, this is like the general information, just the applicant and organization, the project title, and so on. And then it's not even a form, it's just like an introduction that you should write 2 pages. Describe your project briefly, including the conservation issue, goals, brief methods, intended impact of the project, and what font size you should use. So you're not using font size 5 or something. So very short, not much work for you, but still it's designed to save time. Yes, what the main proposal probably will include is like a basic log frame, similar to the theory of change that I introduced before. So if you have one objective here, for example, predator-safe livestock husbandry methods adopted by the project villages, that you describe your activities, time period, give the indicators. So when do you reach the objectives? When 30 to 60% of the livestock owning households have built these predator-proof pens. So this is the indicator that you reached your objective. The means of verification says, what do you do that you are sure these indicators are reached? So usually that's a survey or so observing the participants. In this case, you basically go through the different households and see how many of them have built these pens. And there can be assumption as well. You assume if this project should work, it assumes that the villagers are really willing and able to attend the training events, that they are open to new methods and want to build these pens. Review criteria for the amphibian funds, the relevance of the project. So is it a threatened species? That's really important for us. If there's an action plan, does your project connect to that action plan? Is it an urgent proposal? Does it really need to be now, or is there another 5 years time? And the foundation, so our foundation should cover the majority of funds. That doesn't necessarily mean we can't partner up if you have more funds coming in, but it would be good if we covering like a certain proportion of the projects. Quality, as I said, clear and concise writing, scientific approach, theory of change or logical framework makes sense. Evaluation of the project is incorporated in your planning, so really to prove that you reach your objectives. The stakeholders are clear and involved, and you have the necessary permits. Do you have partners? That means, do you have good references? Have you worked in that area before? Have you done similar projects and these things? And then the sustainability and the exit strategy as well, after you reach your project, and what happens then with that project. Communication, are the results communicated to the stakeholders and also to funders? Is that possible? Can we use your results to communicate what our foundation is supporting? And also the cost benefit. So is it a good cost benefit relation? For example, well, just rescuing 3 pigs, but it costs €500,000, or are we, I don't know, rescuing like a big proportion of the whole species, a very big population for, let's say, 50,000 euros or something, but then save a whole species of maybe an amphibian or invertebrates or something. But also be realistic and have a clear budget. This is my last slide now, then I'm done. My last words would be, don't get demotivated, because it's really normal to be rejected by grant organizations. Don't take the rejections personally, and sometimes there are also comments that may be a little bit harsh in some cases. This is also the case for publications. don't lose your motivation, because usually you write a lot of grant proposals until you get a grant. I remember when I did my I was thinking, when I did my bachelor, I wrote one grant application. I didn't get that. In my master, I wrote 8, I think, and got 2. And in my PhD, I don't even remember how many I wrote, and I got quite a few, but I wrote a lot of applications. So usually sometimes it's maybe 20% or something your applications will be accepted, but it really depends. There was, I think last year was Moabit bin Said Conservation Fund, where I think like 20 projects were funded, but there were like, I think 10 times as many that applied. So sometimes it can be very, very, a lot of applicants, especially maybe in this time, Corona times, where a lot of people have money problems and need more money. But there's a lot of competition. Don't get demotivated. Just try again. It's a lot of practicing as well. Practicing makes you better.